You too.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Leadership Development of Agility with myself and Arif, the Humble Associates.
Welcome, everyone. That's right. We're glad to be back, aren't we, TK? After the new year, we should start with a happy new year to everyone, shouldn't we?
Happy New Year to every one of you.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
new song I
exactly right.
invented.
It's great to see everyone, and thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, our wonderful audience. And it seems like our favorite scammers and spammers are not here. So good stuff. Maybe LinkedIn actually did something interesting to get them out of here. So what are we talking about today, Arif?
Yeah, we're talking about micromanagers, I believe. Is that right? What
Oh
are
yes,
these?
these wonderful
This
people.
curious species of leaders that exist
A very
out there.
curious
Maybe
species of,
some of us
I
dabble
would
in
say
it now and
managers.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, indeed, we're talking about micromanagement and how to deal with that. And we've got a couple of interesting things. So you can see us in the Sky office and in our wonderful Brixton office, but we're wondering where you're hailing from. So let us know in the chat,
Yes,
so we
please.
can see you where you are. We'll wave at you, so hopefully everything's quite okay. But as you're telling us where you're from, we've got a quick question for you. So we would love to know who you are. We're the Humble Associates. So let us know if you're A, an L&D professional, B, a leader, C, an Agile practitioner, or maybe D, neither, just a wonderful human being. And by the way, you can use multiple letters at the same time. So Arif, what's your favorite letter out of these?
I'm curious if we have an A and a B together.
A
That would
and a
be
B together,
interesting.
yes, an
Or
L&D
or
professional
maybe a B
leader.
and a C combined. That would be interesting. If you're neither, that's also I'm easy to you. I'm not too fussed. I'm excited about anyone joining us webinars, to be honest. So
Quite
I have
true,
a
quite
low
true.
benchmark.
Well, come on, our audience is so wonderful. I can see so many people tuning in. We can see the numbers growing exponentially. So, today we're talking about micromanagement. Here's the definition I found, which is a boss or a manager who excessively supervises employees. And
Mm.
that's what I found in Investopedia. But I'm just wondering, Arif, what's your definition? And if anyone in the chat would like to add theirs, feel free to.
Yeah, please do. Well, I think the thing is with this, right?
Mm,
It's going to be subjective in the sense of
indeed.
there's so many people out there, a lot of you watching as well, who've had some experience of micromanagement
Mm,
and probably I can't. Yeah, probably. Um, uh, Based on your own experiences, have your own kind of definition. I
yeah.
think like everyone's experienced it in some ways, where you'll have some degree of micromanagement or some degree of someone excessively managing you, meaning that you'll have experienced it in a unique way to someone else. I'm That's how I'm going to assume most of you out there we'll think of it. So
I think that's a
obviously
popular term, yeah.
put your
Personally,
thoughts
yeah.
in the chat, obviously, but that's what I think. So yeah, it's going to be quite subjective. That's basically what I'm saying. Sorry, TK, go on. What were you going to say?
Elaine actually said that it's all about
Yes,
hiring good people and getting out of their way. Totally agree.
right.
Micromanagers, what they do is, I think it comes from a certain degree of fear and the need for control. So what
Yeah,
happens is you've got a person that really wants to control and really is afraid about what certain people are doing, right? And I think this is where micromanagement comes in. And have you ever heard about micromanagement being described in a positive way, Arif? Has anyone said, "Oh, we need more micromanagers"?
but the problem, I get your point. I
Mm,
know you're being slightly amusing with the question. Yeah, but I think the issue here, I suppose, is no one no one considers themselves one, right? That's the thing. And I bet our audience agree. As in, like, it's always someone perceives you to be one. And
mm.
I've never come across someone who, like, yeah, I'm a micromanager. That's me. Right. I don't know if you have. Have you ever come across someone they think,
Well,
yeah,
actually,
I
yeah,
micromanage?
well, I have a story
Have
to
you?
share actually from
Okay, go on.
well, it's not necessarily that they would title themselves micromanagers, but let me
Hmm.
just explain, right? So, um, I've been visiting some family and I've met my niece. She's a doctor, and she said, well, we were talking about medicine and the way it works in various countries and cultures. And she's Polish, and we talked about how nurses are being treated in Poland. And
Right.
there's
Okay.
quite a hierarchy in terms of medical professions. And if you're a medical professional, let us know if you think it's the same in your culture. And I said, oh,
Yeah.
I'm really appalled about how nurses are being treated in Poland. I always greet them. I always, as a patient, not a doctor, I make sure to introduce myself, to get to know the nurse, because she is caring for me after all. Maybe not the same way as a doctor. And,
Yeah.
I was surprised about what my cousin said. It's, nurses cannot be trusted. They're just simpletons, she said, and they really need to be managed like to the T, and we need to give them like very detailed instructions. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
look, right, really? Oh, so this is the actual problem, right? You're not using their experience, their talent. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them are not terribly well educated, but I'm sure
Yeah.
they're getting experience if you're getting the right nurses. And if you're not getting the right nurses, get the right ones, because your patients
Exactly.
depend on that, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
she
Yeah.
thought micromanagement of nurses is a good thing. So that's the
It's a good
story
thing.
of,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
So there are
interesting.
some people that think that.
They do. They probably, yeah. But I think it goes to your point at the start, which is
Mm.
this low trust and
Mm.
fear. And clearly, in that kind of
Indeed.
environment where it's life and death, or it could be life, there's maybe the fear is heightened that one mistake, one slip up, and I'm on the line, right? Ultimately, I'm
The doctor is
accountable
responsible,
for these
isn't aren't they?
patients.
Right? She is, he is, and
Yeah,
you feel like you, as a
yeah,
responsible person, as a doctor,
yeah,
needs to really micromanage, because a,
exactly.
there's the fear of
Yeah,
health and life, and there's also
yeah,
malpractice. You can imagine what happens in
yeah,
these things,
yeah.
and it's people's health. But why is it so important in agility, Arif? Why is micromanagement so damaging for agile teams and the agile way of work?
Well, I think if you're working well, I think this. So this, I know we ask ourselves this question on every webinar. If you're in a complex environment,
Hmm.
like we've talked about before, where there's constant, change and disruption, and you've got to, tr- I suppose, you've got a group of people you'd think or you'd expect who you've brought together who are highly skilled and highly competent in their
Hmm.
disciplines, right? Now, if you've brought them together, you want to, obviously, you've done that because you need their expertise in order to solve particular problems. So if you're then operating on the basis that, well, actually, first, I don't trust you, despite the skill and experience you've got, I don't trust you. Therefore, I need to now, dictate what needs to happen, or
Yeah.
not necessarily dictate, but I need to tell you what needs to happen, and I need to check up on that and make sure it is happening as I think it should happen.
Hmm.
Then there is no value in that skill and expertise of that individual that you've brought in. And then the compounding effect really is that if you need that skill expertise to then
Hmm.
solve a problem, how do you expect them to solve a problem if they're constrained by your thinking or your approach?
Quite
So if
true,
you
Arif. Yeah.
constrain someone so much, or a group of people or a team, if you constrain them so much, they can't problem solve. It's
Yeah.
like it's like they're working at opposites. Yeah. So problem solving requires, a degree of flexibility and a degree of freedom. But then if you constrain, the act of problem solving, you're going to probably get poor results and poor outcomes. I, yeah, I was
And
going to
agility
use
is
a,
all
a
about
live
problem solving, isn't
example.
it? Right. So this is why it's just so difficult. Sarif, I'm just looking at the comments. I can
Yes,
see, yeah, I can see
what have
some
we got?
great comments. Like Sandeep said, it's can be objective at times, and it's interesting that there's different leadership styles. So some leadership styles would perceive like normal management. Some would say, "Oh, this is actually micromanagement." It's quite true. But then again, it's not up to the leader to decide if they're micromanaging. It's up to people looking up to them to
Yeah, the
think if
team
they're being
members.
creative or not, right? If they're being led
Exactly,
to use their
team members.
talents. So
And I think I
that's a
think
nice one.
this is a good point, and Sandeep's raised it, but he's also asked, I mean, how is it different from being autocratic, right?
Hmm.
So I think you've got to, if you've got an environment where team members are afraid to speak up,
Hmm.
right? Or they're unable to openly share how they feel about your leadership stance and style. That should be a warning sign, right? um, and also if you're observing the quality of output is not what you expect, right? Or what you're looking for, that's another sign, that's another red flag, I think. Because if you're getting high quality diverse outputs or from your team, then you can feel confident that the team feel that they have the freedom to solve problems in the way they think they can be solved. But if the opposite is happening, then there's a question mark. Do they have the freedom to solve the problem as they should be able to? So yeah, you can then extend from this your
Mhm.
point about autocratic, or excuse me, an autocratic, despotic, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, all of that can extend from that.
So
So
Michael
yeah, I
has an
agree
interesting
with
comment.
Sandy.
No.
Sandy.
Michael has an
Yeah,
interesting. Thank you, Arif. Has a very
yeah,
interesting comment about the level of management varies depending on employees' needs. Right? If you're, for instance, a proponent of what is it called, the situational leadership by
yeah.
Ken
That's
Blanchard,
true.
you
Yeah,
would actually see that less experienced employees may appreciate more
they appreciate.
guidance,
Yeah,
but they would
exactly.
probably not call it micromanagement. They would call
No.
it a helpful manager helping them out, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
And
It's all
plus,
about that, right?
I respect the fact there are others who call for the fact that, okay, well, it depends on, as I think you said, situational, right? So,
Mm,
and the other situation is like, okay, well, everything is you're in a catastrophic situation where something needs to be stabilized. The environment needs to be, I don't know, the whole the systems have all crashed, or healthcare situation, right? You've got
mhm,
loads of highly critical incidents to deal with, at the same time, for instance, whatever it is, whatever the situation is. If you're in that kind of situation where it's critical and you need to stabilize, then maybe issuing you know commands and diktats, say you do this, you do that, I want this done, I need it done, I need you here, blah blah blah. That might work because you'll get the situation stabilized pretty quickly. But
mm.
again, I don't think that's micromanagement. That's not what we're talking
No,
about, is
no.
it, DK?
And to answer Sandeep's question, how is it different from being autocratic? My answer to you is go and ask the people that are looking up to you for leadership. And if you create
Or if
psychological
you're a leader
safety,
yourself.
you can ask them, do you think I'm autocratic?
I
Because
don't know if people answer
some,
that though.
hmm?
Yeah, I mean, if you okay, you're a leader yourself, TK.
Yes,
Come on, let's try this
it
experiment
it
out.
doesn't work, right? But
Yeah, it doesn't work.
the question, Arif, is okay. That's fine. If you
Yeah.
are truly autocratic, you will not get the true answer.
No, you won't get a true
If
answer.
you're not autocratic, you might. But this is like these two, the riddle with the cyborg always telling a lie and so on. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's not the best way, but will help you with the next things that will show you what is the way to actually agree how you want to lead people and how people want to be led, and you can find a way to move forward with that. So let's move forward with our wonderful slides, because we're at halftime. We haven't introduced the tool from the
Yeah, yeah, I
wonderful
know. We haven't
suite of Management
enjoyed this
3.0.
conversation. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. Go on.
There is. But we've got
Yeah,
Management
there is.
3.0. So Jurgen Apollo,
Yeah,
he is a great
yeah,
collector of tools, and he has collected this one and refined it.
yeah.
And it's a tool that really helps with the levels of delegation. But a word of warning for you before I introduce this tool. This is a tool that helps with agreeing who makes a decision. And it best works in a situation when you've got a boss, a manager, a leader, different names, different things, and an employee or a person that's contributing, and they negotiate. Or it can be a team, right? So again, this is a tool for agreeing ways to make decisions, and it is called the delegation poker. So Arif, what did you think when you first heard the term delegation poker, if you can remember
Well,
when it was?
the game is called the poker, which
Yes.
we'll come to the game hopefully if the time allows. But the what's important here is the categorization, right?
Yes.
So as you can see on screen, we've got the 7 categories of delegation. That's how I would introduce this first, right? So the belief here is that typically when deciding Even I think this happens subconsciously in lots of cases, right? Teams don't realize this is happening, and it just culturally, over time happens between leaders and teams where certain things or sorry, certain decisions or certain
Hmm.
activities have a level of decision making and others have a different one. And so what Jurgen's done is he's put together this categorization and his idea his excuse me categorization is that there are 7 levels that exist. So we'll go
Seven
through them,
levels,
won't
yes.
we, TK?
We
And then
we will, and I
yeah,
have them for
talk
you
about
right
them.
now. So, yes, 7 levels of decision making. Arif is definitely getting some sugar in his bloodstream,
I
so you
need
go
some.
through all the 7. Yeah,
Long
what you're
day.
gonna do, right?
Long day.
So, going for the first one.
Yes.
So let's
Very
describe
simple.
what you can see here. This is a playing card which we've cut out to be able to talk about it more easily. So the person, the wonderful blonde lady with blue eyes, is a manager. She has you can tell because she has an M cap. And when they're in the mode number 1, it's essentially the manager telling the employees and making the decisions for them, completely not taking into account what they say. We see that a lot, don't we?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, in lots of cases, I'm sure most people watching this, they'll can tell you straight off.
Mhm.
Yep, there are things that I have no control over, and it's up to the manager, and they'll tell me what I can or can't do. Right?
Or
They
the
tell
manager
me,
just makes a decision, right? You,
yeah,
you
yeah, I
make a
made the
decision who's
decision.
promoted,
Yeah,
when are we going out for lunch. This is the end of the spectrum. This is the autocratic thing, as I think one of our members of the audience have said, right? So this is but some decisions may need to be taken like that, right? The manager in certain situations may have to act like that, but we've talked about these situations. But what comes next is we're moving closer to employees making decisions, and the second one is sell, which is when the manager makes a decision for the team, but he tries to convince them that that's the right decision to make. Arif, can you tell us a story about selling?
but it is. Yeah, well, I mean, you at least if it makes you feel like you're included,
Yes.
even if the reality is you're not included in the decision, right? Because the decision's already been made. It's a bit like you get town halls, right?
Hmm.
And the senior leaders have convened everyone to
Yeah.
tell you that, oh, we're doing a reorg and you're going to be now moving into this team, and don't worry, it'll all be fine because we've looked after you, and you're not going to lose your jobs and your pay is going to
Hmm.
be protected. Blah blah blah. It's just you're going to move and work over here or something like that, right? So that's them trying to sell you what's happening and you got no control over it still.
Okay.
That's
So
pretty
that's
normal
quite a good
or
description. I
typical.
think, yeah, that's unfortunately quite typical. I don't like necessarily the game that it implies that you think you have some decision power there, but really the only thing the leader does is just looks after your morale, so you feel like you're a part of it. But you're starting to be a part of it in number 3, which is consult, which actually means
Yeah.
that before making the decision, the manager listens to the team's opinion. Now, I call it the Captain Picard style of management, which is or, in a military situation, not always, but, if you look at the 80s when Star Trek The Next Generation or early 90s was popular, you would have a situation where this style of leadership was counted as a great one because Captain Picard will gather his senior team, get their opinions, consult them, but Captain Picard makes the decision overall, right? So it's all about, but at least he asks people, he gets their opinion. So
Yeah,
it's getting there, isn't it?
it's getting there. I mean, yeah, it's a bit like politicians have a council, as in, advisors and council, as in SEL. Sorry, not
Hmm.
like leadership council. Yeah, who they lean on for advice, right?
Good
And
point.
then provide input, and then they'll make a decision, something like that.
The next one is pretty difficult, I think, which is agree. All right, so it
Yeah.
sounds simple. The manager engages in with the entire team in conversation and reaches a consensus to make the decision. Um, Arif, why do you think I think it's a difficult one? Huh.
You can see now visually
Mm,
or pictorially the interesting thing happening with the manager is reducing in size, and the
yes.
employee has increased, and now they're at the same level. So it's like there's an equal playing field here, right? So there has to be a compromise, a proper compromise to get the decision. It can't be one over the other in this example, right? Or in this level of delegation, it's a case of, okay, no one makes the decision on their own. We have to
Yeah.
agree at the same time. That
Mm.
might work for some things, but probably not for everything.
It's a very difficult one to achieve. The reason is this equality state. You're essentially in the middle of the fence. And do you really know that you have the equality of decisions? Do you really know that the team has the same power as the manager? Very hard thing to achieve. And, I would tend to say that it's best to avoid this one and go for either number three, that you know that the manager is Captain Picard and has more power, or go for number five, which is advice. So the manager offers his or her opinion, but the team decides. This is not Captain Picard, but this time it's Captain Marquette. So if
Yeah.
you have heard about Turn the Ship Around, we probably will do a webinar about that. Captain Marquette has the intent-based style of leadership, which is the team knows best, they decide. The captain is just asking questions, right? Is it safe to do so? Is it that or is it that? Now that's a slightly better style to achieve than number four, because ultimately the team has the decision power. And yet, this is where you tread into this dangerous territory of the team having a decision power. How often have you seen
Well,
any
I mean,
decisions being made more than number five and more, Arif?
no, I think I was going to say I wouldn't say dangerous because I think that's
Mm.
unfair. I think it's. I mean, okay, it requires a lot culturally to make this acceptable, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't call it dangerous. I think that's a bit unfair. I think, yeah, as long as culturally you set up for making this possible, and you've
Hmm.
got the environment that allows this to be possible, great. But well, yes, I think the health warning is not every organization is going to be in this position where they can do that. Maybe they
Certainly
can do it
not.
for some types of decisions, but not all. But it's something that maybe incrementally or iteratively you may work up to over time. Maybe we'll come to
Mm.
that if we have time today to talk about that. But that's what I would say.
It's a
But
good
if you
point,
ask
yeah.
me, have I seen that? Um, I off the top of my head, no.
It's a difficult
But
one. The
maybe there
next
are
one is
examples I'm
actually,
not
yeah.
thinking of that it is
Mm.
possible.
It is possible.
Oh,
I've seen this one, which is literally what Marquette teaches, which the
yeah,
team makes a decision, the
yeah.
manager
He
just
follows
asks
up.
questions.
Yeah, yeah. He
Just
does.
say,
He does
okay,
talk
you
about.
make the decision. I'll ask you some questions to make sure that you are considering some things. So this is
Yeah,
what I would call a coaching style of leadership in this case, right? So you've got a lot of delegation. The team is making the decision. The question is, how do you include the leader in there with their wisdom, with their ability to sometimes
it,
see on a different level, and a leader coach type or coach type leader would ask questions. That's a good one,
the
isn't
funny
it?
thing is with this one,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the complete opposite of the second one, which was
There you go, right? They go
consult.
in the
Yeah,
rainbow.
it's like a rainbow. Yeah, because a consult one is I'm going to try and I'll not consult, sell. Sorry,
Hmm.
sell. I'm going to sell it to you. So I'm going to make the decision, but I'm going to tell you why I think it's a good thing. Whereas this one is like, okay, I'll let you make the decision, then tell me afterwards why you think it's a good thing. It's kind of the opposite.
Which
Anyway,
is
yeah,
interesting because if you look at number seven, RF, this is
yeah,
delegate. So you
yeah,
completely delegate the decision making
agree.
to the team, and this
Yeah,
is I've seen it a bunch of times. It's not that unheard of. If there's a thing that a manager feels like, okay, I don't need to even be involved in this decision. You guys decide. Wait, where to go on a pub lunch on Friday by yourselves.
yeah,
It's fine. You just delegate it.
yeah,
Many
exactly.
many
No,
leaders
that's
treat it like quite binary, right? They do jump between 1, 2, and 7, whereas actually, as you've seen today, there's a whole spectrum. of these wonderful
Yeah.
decision-making techniques.
Yeah.
But go
my
ahead.
comments is not working to TK, so I'm not able to check if anyone's added any new comments. So
I'm
apologies.
refreshing, but I can't know if they're
Yeah.
working or not because it's
Link,
LinkedIn, and
yeah,
LinkedIn has
I
like number 8.
exactly. It's really frustrating. I just
It's
thought
really
I'd just let you know.
frustrating. But
Anyway,
if we see an
where
interesting
are we?
comment, well, I'm sure we'll respond to it. But we can see the
Yeah.
likes and the hearts and the supports coming our way, which is amazing. So we've introduced these cards, but the question is, how do we use them? So Arif, I've got
Yes.
this wonderful image for you, and as a wonderful facilitator you are, tell us how you would help the team and a leader use these
Well, okay.
cards.
Before we get, can we go to the
Yes.
next one with the board? Because
Okay, I'll go
I
with the
think that
board.
would be
Yes, let's
useful.
go with
Yeah,
the board
this one.
first.
Yeah. So the first, I think the first thing I would say is, before you play any games like TK was asking me about, is it's if you're a leader and you
Hmm.
have a team and you want to start thinking about, okay, how do I now, you know, own decisions less, perhaps reduce my level of micromanagement, then start off at the very minimum. First thing is capture all the types of decisions that typically get made between you and the team. And a board like this can really help. So what
Hmm.
it simply does is you've got the 7 levels we talked about along the top, and on the left hand side you need to list out what are the type of decisions that typically happen between you and the team. Everything from, work type decisions, like, okay, who signs off these particular tasks, or pay, or promotion, or holidays, or bonuses. All of that can be considered, right? And you can list them all out and then just categorize, where are you right now? Okay, so it could be that for some of these you might be towards the bottom end, higher
Hmm.
end, as in the delegation end, or for many of them you might be on the left hand side, which is you're in charge of those decisions as a leader. So put all that together, map it all out, and if you need to, obviously go around your team and verify: is this correct? Do we agree this on this mapping, that this is the current state of play in terms of what level of delegation exists between me and you as a team member and as the manager? That's the first thing I would do. And then once you've done that, I think you can even just start a conversation from that point, because you're going to have a lot of insight from there, which your team will react to. I thought, oh, I didn't realize that. I assumed it was you. No, actually,
No,
we
yeah.
we're supposed to make this decision together. Those kind of conversations. And then it's a case of, okay, picking something that you feel is maybe low risk, right? A type of decisions which you think, okay, well, look, I typically make this decision, I tell you, but I feel like I want to now negotiate this type of decision with you, and let's see if we can move it more towards 7. Okay. And that's where the game comes in. So the poker game is quite interesting. I know we got a minute left, but the poker game is
You
really
can make the
interesting.
challenge, Arif. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Describe
because
it
it
quickly.
allows you to, in a fun way, using cards, basically vote on,
Mm.
right, which level of delegation you want to have for that decision. So that's what you want to have, and so that's what you want to be doing with that. So you want to be saying, okay, let's all get, choose your cards on your own. Okay, for decision type of X, we currently are at tell. I tell you what it is. Everyone decide amongst themselves, what do you want it to be? Put your card on the table and then have a look and discuss. Now, okay, you're going to tell me, yeah, but I don't feel safe enough in my team to do that. I don't feel comfortable enough. Okay, fair enough. And that's something you may want to work towards. So I'm not going to say you do the poker straight away. First things first is do the mapping and get the board up and table it all out and start a conversation. And then once you feel you're comfortable with your team and the team feel comfortable enough that they want to change something, I think the poker can come in. Maybe something on the podcast, which we haven't talked about, but
Maybe
we
something in
can
the
talk about
podcast,
that.
Arif, which is
Yes.
something we want to talk about. So we've now started a new wonderful podcast. So if you're interested in hearing more about these kinds of things, you can find Leading with Agility in your favorite podcast player, or scan this QR code and you will see like the episodes, and you can choose your favorite podcast player that you're using. So if you're not tired of our voices. And finally, if you are wondering about the style that you prefer to lead with, there were many questions in the comments. We have a nice offer for you. It's actually free. We will help you figure out what's your leadership style, and we're offering a one coaching session following an assessment. So scan this code. You can book a coaching session with us with an assessment with the leadership circle, and we would love to see you. So that's that for today. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a lovely webinar, and we will hopefully see you in 2 weeks.
Hopefully join us on our podcast. We really want to have you there listening, and we'll probably talk about this more in our next episode on Monday, which is
we
when
will.
that next episode
If you've spoiled that it's on Monday, it is.
Well,
Be there, subscribe, and we're looking forward to seeing you again and listening to our podcast. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.